Hello, and welcome to Keep the Channel Open. My name is Mike Sakasagawa, and this is episode 31. So, this past weekend was Martin Luther King weekend, and I had the opportunity to attend some activist meetings in my area. And what I'm thinking about, what I've been thinking about the past few days, well, I guess really for a lot longer than that, but what I've been thinking about recently is power. And that can mean a lot of things in a lot of different contexts, but what I'm thinking about right now is the power that we all have as individuals, and especially the way we do or don't feel powerful. I guess I want to try to be a little careful here, just because, power is a word that has a lot of applications here, and, a lot of them are bigger than how we might feel on a personal level. So I don't want to create any kind of false equivalency or trivialize anything else. Just being at these meetings and being a part of a movement, what it made me think about is how powerless and helpless I felt right after the election, and how having purpose and a sense of direction is something that I really need in my life in order to get through a day. And so being able to participate, even in a small way, as part of something outside of just myself, it helped bring me back to a place of purpose, and even more of feeling like I have some power to affect change in the world. And looking around at the other people I saw this week, and I know that was something they were feeling as well. And then, when I was sitting down to work on this week's episode, it occurred to me that that feeling is not completely unlike the feeling of art making. Or, art making is complex and has a lot of feelings associated with it, but one of the things that making art does for me, because the art that I make is personal and it's based around my life and my emotions, one of the things about making art is that it gives me a way of getting my arms around parts of my life. And in a way, that's a form of power, that creating a narrative and creating a sense of purpose is a form of exerting power, if that makes sense. Anyway, that's just what I'm thinking about right now. Let's get on to today's show. Our guest this week is photographer Christina Riley. I bought Christina's book back to me a few years ago when it first came out, and I remember flipping through it and just feeling floored. Like, here was a story that was so intensely personal to the artist, but also felt like it was talking right to me, talking through something that I really needed talking through, even if I didn't know it beforehand. And some of the images in this book are so familiar, like literally places that I know so intimately, and seeing them in someone else's narrative was kind of shocking, actually, but it made everything all the more real to me. So I'd like to read you the blurb from the publisher, Straylight Press's website. It goes like this. A few years ago, Christina Riley fell into another world, a world of euphoria and delusion, mania and depression. She wasn't sure anymore just who she was. This madness was held in check partly by the act of photographing herself in that strange world. It was a way for her to see what might be real and what might not, an anchor to reality. Snow fell from a glowing sky, and the cold didn't touch me. I was the sun. I was sent there for a reason. I had to do these things. It was my path, who I was. Flooded with euphoria and delusions, sleepless nights and alcohol, I was unstoppable. Back to Me is a quiet and intimate record of that time, a book of haunting photographs and terrible beauty. It's a potent book, and I do recommend it. The second edition is available from Straylight Press now, and I'll put a link in the show notes for that. You should also watch out for her next book, Born, which will be coming out from Straylight Press soon. On top of being a talented photographer, Christina is also a musician. She sings and plays guitar for the band Burnt Palms, which is based in Seaside, California, where she currently lives. I've put links for Burnt Palms as well as a solo project of hers called And Gone into the show notes. We talked about both of those in the conversation, and I encourage you to check those out as well. And now here's my conversation with Christina Riley. So how you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, always up and down, but I would say today, so far I'm good.
Good.
Yeah.
So I was like, every time I start, about to talk to someone, I try to think like, now where did I first hear of this person's work?
Yeah.
And like, I don't know how to say his name. Toni
Foose?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you found me through him.
Yeah. I used
cool.
to follow his drool blog. And I think that when, cause he published your book, right?
Yeah. Stray Light Press.
Yeah. So I think that's how I first heard of your book and
cool.
you. And that book just like really, I bought it and I meant to bring it with me so that I could have you sign it. And then I totally forgot. Cause we're up here to like visit family and stuff. And I brought like we were all packing like our kids stuff and.
I might have a second edition I can hook you up with.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll have to look.
Yeah, that book really kind of knocked me out.
Thank you.
So yeah, it's funny too how like parts of it have really stuck with, like particular images have really stuck with me. There's this one, and I assume it's a self-portrait, and it's like it's sort of blurry, sort of red tinged, and like looks like you're yelling.
Oh man, I'm trying to remember which one that is. I could grab the book, but I don't know. I can't really, oh man, I don't know if there's any that I'd be yelling in. I know there's one where I'm crying. There's a few where I'm crying, I think. That chapter in my life was a lot of, tears.
Yeah.
Just like the hardest time of my life.
Yeah. Well, can you sort of talk a little bit about?
Yeah. So I think it was 2011. I decided to go off my medication. I'm bipolar type 1. And so, I thought, oh, maybe, living here and surfing and just having this change in my life, maybe I'm not actually bipolar. It was all these thoughts that I guess there were delusions. Anyway, I ended up, going off, and then it kind of kicked me into a manic state. And then once you're manic, there's really no stopping you. Even my husband, we talked about going off the medication before, and I was doing so well that we thought, maybe it's true. Maybe I was misdiagnosed, but, that didn't work out that way. So, so it kind of, spiraled and I lost control. And then I kept flying back to Ottawa, where I'm from, and then was back here. And I don't know about going into too much detail, because I think the book kind of says enough, I guess. But it was just really life-changing. I realized at that point, after everything, that, okay, I do have this illness and I need to take care of it. It's just going to be part of my life forever. And, but I am thankful that that happened, actually. I feel like it was kind of meant to happen, almost like it needed to happen for me to get to this next, chapter in my life. And the photographs really helped with that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something that I think a lot of people, I know a lot of different artists now and different writers, and that the process of making the art can be so therapeutic.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
With those, even before I started shooting, back to me, it was probably when I first got my D2X or something after college. I was just messing around and I put the ISO like way up, like, maxed it out, and it created that really grainy, like the colors were all wacky. And I did a couple self-portraits. They weren't part of any project. Then I kind of forgot about that. And then when I got sick, something in me just knew I had to take the pictures. It really did feel out of my control. But I also knew what I was doing. Like I could see when I looked at the back of the camera or loaded them in that they were really like full of emotion.
Yeah.
So I think I just knew it was something I had to do. So
yeah. And for me, those pictures, I don't know, they really touched something in me that, and I think especially because of the specific details of the photographs involving the Big Sur coastline and the Bixby Bridge.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if I think I emailed you like right after I bought the book. I don't
Yeah,
really
you
remember
did. Yeah.
what I told you, but like there was, I actually lived almost directly underneath the Bixby Bridge
Oh,
for about
wow.
a year when I was in elementary school.
Cool.
And so that place has always had sort of a weird, complicated memory for me.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then when I was in high school, I actually knew a guy that he also had a lot of problems, but he didn't make it through.
Yeah.
And he actually, that's where he died.
Yeah, I think that's what you, when you wrote me, I remember it meant a lot to me because you said you were happy that I got through it and survived because you knew of this other friend who it didn't work out like that. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it really means a lot when people kind of reach out to you and tell you what your work means to them, or that, it helped them through stuff. That's kind of super rewarding.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the purpose of, that was never really in my mind while I was shooting it. It wasn't for anyone else. It was for me. And I honestly think that's like everything I shoot. It is based mostly on myself and my life. And getting through different things in my life, or, dealing with change and stuff like that. So it's always for me. And then it just seems like a lot of people can relate to it. So
yeah, it's the same thing for me when I'm shooting. I'm always trying to, like, the first audience is always me.
Yeah.
But if it's able to connect with somebody and mean something to somebody else, I mean, that's really nice.
Yeah, for sure.
I find that really helpful for me too.
It is. It's motivating.
Yeah.
And I know, like, after Straight Light Press put out the book, it got me more publicity that maybe I wouldn't have had, because no one really knows who I am. Like, Toni Foose is actually my mentor. And I guess I could start with that, because I went to college in Ottawa for photography, which, I'm not really, like, into school. I feel like I have a hard time with classrooms and
I think a lot of artists are like that.
Yeah. But anyway, after I graduated, I started assisting, and then I ended up as Tony's assistant, and he kind of really changed my life, like, in an awesome way. Because one of the things he told me is, like, keep it real, baby, or something like that, which is, like, totally how I feel about photography. I was pretty lost at first. Like, I was trying to, like, I did commercial work and I shot a couple weddings, but honestly, like, weddings are not my thing. I find it way too much, and everything's so out of control. And anyway, so I kind of learned what I preferred doing, working with Tony, and seeing him, shooting professionally. And then also he was constantly shooting personal projects. And they were all real. Like, it wasn't like fake or staged. It was mostly like other people, real portraits. And so, yeah, that was very inspiring. And his wife, Cindy Deachman, is also an artist. And both of them kind of mean so much to me. They're like my family.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, that's one of the things. Keep it real, baby. So, yeah, that actually changed my life, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, his photographs are so, I don't know, there's something about the way that he shoots when he's taking portraits of other people that you can tell that he has so much empathy.
Yeah.
For the people that he's
working
connecting with.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's human, and, yeah, he's really cool. It was great working with him. Mm. Yeah. And seeing how he interacts. It's always, I mean, I've done a little bit of, like shooting strangers out in different places. I did some in Seaside recently, mm-hmm. Or a couple years ago. And, it's always hard to approach people. Mm-hmm. Like, you get, like, shot down, like, people want nothing to do with you, but then you get people who are, like, open to it, and that's really fun. But, yeah, working with Toni when he was doing that, it was, that's how I learned not to expect people to want to mm-hmm. be a subject or whatever, but... Yeah, it's fun, but it's hard, you know. And then I think like photographing myself in my life is, I could see that was kind of what felt right to me. Mm-hmm. 'Cause I tried all kinds of different things, and I still am interested in shooting other projects, but there's just been so many things that have happened in my life, like having a daughter, mm-hmm. having a manic episode, which turns into a depressive episode. So it's, you get high and then you get low. Mm-hmm. But you're just like flooded with emotions. And I really feel like the way I deal with such intense feelings is to photograph. Mm-hmm. So...
It's pretty similar for me.
Yeah.
Because I, photographically, and I do a lot of stuff from my own life also. And there's something about the act of photographing where taking the picture and having to look at stuff.
Yeah.
Kind of helps you get your arms around it, or at least for me.
Totally. Yeah, and you can see kind of how you exist in the world, like, and then I just also think it's important to document your life in a way. Like my mom, ever since I was like a baby, she always took pictures of us. Like my whole life is documented through my mom, and so I think that was really inspiring to me. When I was in like 6th grade, she let me hold her SLR and look through. And then I remember being fascinated with like the focus lines, Yeah, I remember that moment so clearly. And, my parents are really supportive. My dad is actually a pretty good painter, like traditional landscapes, but he doesn't really paint anymore. He kind of did it when he was younger and then got busy working. But they were always very supportive of arts, and which I think helped. And I think they knew they could see that from a young age. That's kind of where my strength was, more like creative instead of academic. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah. So how did you wind up getting from Ottawa to Seaside? It seems like kind of like a not super obvious.
Yeah.
I know.
It's interesting. So my husband is a nurse. He studied nursing in Ottawa. And when he graduated, we realized that we could kind of move anywhere in a way, because it's easy to get work if you're a nurse. And years before that, we kind of discovered surfing on the east coast of Canada when we were on a road trip. So we fell in love with the ocean and just that whole lifestyle. So we wanted to try to live that way as much as possible. And so he worked with a recruiter, and we ended up, one of the spots was Salinas. But we were like, oh, well, if we're moving to California, we want to be like pretty much on the beach. So we ended up in Marina first, then realized that Seaside was a lot sunnier. So yeah, we like it. I mean, I definitely miss Canada in a lot of ways, but I'll have to go back one day anyway. So trying to just enjoy what we have right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. I haven't been to Ottawa, but I've been to Ontario a whole bunch because my wife's family is from Ontario.
Weird.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Yeah.
Yeah, so she actually was born and grew up in Big Sur.
Okay.
And I was born in Salinas and grew up outside of Carmel, like in Carmel Valley. But her mom is from like near London, Ontario.
Okay.
And so we get up there like once a year. But and then she's got a lot of family in Toronto also.
Fun.
But it was when I saw that was your, like in your bio that you're from Ontario, I was like, that is a very strange coincidence.
Yeah, totally. I'm always shocked when I meet people from Ontario. I don't know why. I mean, I think the population of Canada is actually, it is less than California.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is weird when you run into other Canadians, but I think we get around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Always leaving the cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Seaside's it's funny. I think I never really paid a lot of attention to Seaside when I lived here.
Yeah.
And then only because of the fact that you're here and because you had some of those street portraits where you were sort of talking about the community here.
Yeah.
Even though, like, and I mentioned, like, when I first walked in, my first girlfriend lived here, but I never really thought about like what it's actually like here very much.
Yeah.
Everybody in this area sort of has certain stereotypes of each little town.
Totally.
And I don't think very many of us, even though we're all really close together, like from here to Pebble Beach even is not
I know,
far.
it's really interesting.
Yeah. But we never really take the opportunity. I think a lot of people just sort of take it for granted that the stories are what they are.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I think I really like Seaside. I like that it's diverse, and seems to be more culture. Like even like walking down my street, it's nice. I talk to like all different kinds of people, and they're all really friendly. And you know, now the home values went like way up, so it's really weird to see people buying houses. You know, I don't know.
It's I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of stuff different here in the next 10 or 20 years. So.
For sure. Like even since we moved here, I think we've been here like almost 8 years, and it has changed a lot. Yeah. Even like population wise, like the traffic used to not be bad, but now there's way more traffic. I don't know if it's something to do with the college or university. But yeah, we noticed that. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I like living here. When I first moved from Ottawa, I guess I wasn't expecting such a cultural change, you know, because like, I don't know why, like maybe because North America and I wasn't too educated on that. But yeah, so I was shocked when I moved here, just the difference between the Canadians I knew and the Americans that I met. But I love it here. I really wish like we could stay longer, I guess. But like I say, I'm just trying to live in the moment and appreciate what I have, and then also prepare myself for the fact that, you know, it will have to change. I'll have to move back. Yeah. I'm not sure where yet, but my whole family's in Ottawa, and it's hard to be away from them, especially with like my parents. They're not old, but they're getting older, and I have a sister and 2 nieces there, and my sister and I are really close too. So it's just weird. Yeah. Living so far.
Same. Like especially when you have kids and you know, your family wants to see your kids. For us, it's only like 400 miles or so, 450 miles from here to San Diego. Yeah. But
but then that's far enough that like we don't get to see them as much as we want.
Yeah.
And then my wife's Canadian family, and of course we only get to see them like once a year. And
yeah.
So all the aunts and uncles and stuff, they want to spend time with the kids. And
yeah, for sure. I spend a lot of time on FaceTime, like with my mom and dad. So that helps, I think, you know. Mm-hmm. I can't actually imagine living so far without FaceTime or Skype. I don't think I could do it. So yeah, that helps. But yeah, as for art, going back to me, mm-hmm. I remember when Toni kind of approached me and he was excited about kind of what he saw in the pictures. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes it takes like like someone else's perspective to see what's there.
Yeah.
'Cause like it's easy for me to like feel like crap about everything I make. Like I have so much like negative self-talk. It's something I have to work on for sure, 'cause it doesn't really help anything. So when you have someone who you respect and who sees something in your work, it really helps. But when I put out the book, it's weird. It's so personal, but I didn't feel nervous about putting it out there. For some reason, it felt really good. Mm-hmm. Because I kind of feel like if, you know, people want to judge me for my mental illness, I don't want anything to do with them. Mm-hmm. And I think it's important that people see, you know, people with bipolar disorder can live totally normal lives.
Yeah.
And, you know, we all have ups and downs, and it's just the way it is with everyone, but it's just way more extreme when you have bipolar. It's
a thing where, you know, like with a lot of things, I think people, there's a lot of misunderstandings about mental illness and how it actually looks. And, you know, I don't know, it's not that there's necessarily a lack of people talking about it, but a lot of the ways that people talk about it are really even kind of harmful. Like,
totally.
But that's really sort of one of those things where, I don't know, I feel like especially right now, like, you know, right now, that like having the ability to really connect with somebody else's life experience, mm-hmm. and to be able to see something that humanizes other people's lives and other people's experiences in, you know, that's just so important. And it's something that is really uniquely the province of art.
For sure. Do. Yeah. It's really important. I feel like without art, without photography, I don't know where I'd be, honestly. It's such a part of me. Mm-hmm. And I think it is a compulsion all the time. Like when I take self-portraits, I could be feeling a certain way, or even like it's interesting because like I'll like take my phone and I'll put on the selfie cam and I'll be like, oh, weird. It almost like triggers a feeling, and then I'll kind of run with it. Like the recent ones I was posting, where I look more androgynous. I don't know. I stopped doing them. I posted about it because I was like mm-hmm. getting distracted from my other mm-hmm. work. But I was sinking so deep into those pictures mm-hmm. and thinking too much about them that it was actually messing with me. Like I was already in a state that maybe wasn't super stable. And I'm constantly trying to get my medication right and dealing with stress of life. So when I started shooting those, the first one I shot, which is my profile picture on Instagram, and I'm sitting on a bed, that was kind of born from just like looking at myself on my phone. Mm-hmm. And then I just had this feeling like, oh, I need to like document myself in this moment because I look this certain way and I'm feeling this. And from there, it's like I got obsessed with it. And I'm so ADD. It's like once I start something and then I don't stop thinking about it, or I jump from one thing to the other, you know, because mm-hmm. at the same time I was shooting those, I was also trying to edit my project of, motherhood for the first year, which is this kind of the next one up. I'm going to make a book out of that. So
I'm very excited to see that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those pictures you put on Instagram over the past little while.
Yeah.
But, I've always, I don't know, there's just something about the way that you take pictures where I always feel like, I think what it is that you're very unafraid to show things that are real.
Yeah.
Know? And so everything is really personal and really, but they just feel really right.
Thank you.
To me as a viewer anyway. Like,
yeah.
I always tend to connect more strongly with things like personal narrative, but even at that, like, there are a lot of people doing different personal projects right now, but I feel like not everybody is able to sort of get at the actual emotion of the moment.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I don't know really how I'm able to do that. I think it has a lot to do probably with compulsive behavior, because I'll be in a moment and I'll be feeling like I can almost see it from an outside perspective. Like when I'm dealing with something, it's like an outer body experience where I can see from a camera's perspective, I guess. So, I try to always have my camera around me, and a lot of the time I don't have a tripod around me, so I just kind of work with tables or whatever. But when I do have a tripod, I know I have one set up right now in my like office space, but that helps, because. But yeah, it is. I don't know. It's interesting how I kind of discovered, I guess, my style of shooting. It's weird to say that, like, my style. I never really like think that way, but it's becoming more apparent to me with age that that's kind of what I do best, or like what feels most genuine to me.
There's a way too that you have of sort of interleaving self-portraiture with photographs that you're not in, so that either you're in the photograph or the photograph is from your perspective.
Yeah.
But the way that you're able to put all of that together, it feels very natural. Like the two don't really feel separate. Okay, yeah.
You mean like an edited kind of?
Yeah, or even just in the context of like a stream like Instagram.
Okay.
Where it feels very natural.
Cool, thanks. Maybe that's something to do with just like knowing what I'm trying to say, or, I can see when I look at a picture that I take, if it gives me like a feeling or I feel like I just know it in my gut, like, oh, this is a picture that feels right and it says something. And then, when you come to editing a project, I had a lot of help from Toni, because again, like when you're so close to the work, it's hard to separate from pictures that you love, and he's really helpful with that. But and then I don't know, I just think pictures, landscape, stuff that isn't me is just as important and provocative, I guess, as self-portraits. Yeah,
it's hard when you're when you talk about editing, when you're because this is the way I shoot too, is that I tend to shoot very instinctively and just have a camera around, and when I respond to something, then I'll make the picture, and then it's only after I've been shooting for a while that I realize that there's something there that I could sort of make a narrative out of.
Yeah.
And approaching it that way, I think, makes the editing, because you're not starting from the idea, that you kind of have to edit to the idea instead of like starting with the idea and editing out the stuff that isn't that.
Yeah.
It's like a harder way to work, I feel like. I mean, I don't know. I've never tried the other way. So.
Yeah.
But it's...
Yeah. And I think like when I start shooting, like there's another project I started recently called Unsettled, which is, I kind of want to make that into a little book also. And that was, that kind of was born from an experience I had when we first moved into this house. I don't really want to go into detail about that, but, again, it was just like dealing with those heavy feelings and I also use music for that too, I guess. But to me, like number one, my way that of dealing with things is photography, and music is just as important. But for some reason, with photography, it feels like just part of me. Like you know, it's an organ. And it wasn't always that way. Like when I went to college, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Like college kind of taught me some technical things, but nothing really about like submitting work or like showing your work. But I actually learned most from assisting, Toni, about lighting. I learned more about lighting actually with him. But one of the things one of my professors said that always kind of stuck with me is some people can see light. And I've always thought about that. I feel like I can see light. Like I always pay attention to it. I'll notice things, and I think that's important too as a photographer or painter, whatever, you know. And it's fascinating. Yeah.
It's funny. Like that's the same thing for me. My biggest problem when it comes to like any kind of technique is just that like I can see light that's already there. I kind of have trouble planning to like create new light, but
okay. Yeah.
When it's funny now, as I've been doing this for longer, like now we'll be driving somewhere and I'll see something and I'll be about to point it out, and my wife will say, "I know what you're going to point at."
Oh, really?
Because now I've sort of trained her like the stuff that I'll notice.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with my husband, he paints like he hasn't in a long time because he's doing school and working. But also, he's always been very supportive, and like, you know, I put pictures of him and back to me, and I have pictures of him in my current project, which I'm not even sure of the name yet.
Yeah.
On the blog, it was like People Happen, but I don't feel like that at all. That's not what I'm feeling about it now. I think right now I'm more focusing on like the loneliness of the whole experience and how alien it feels.
It's really weird.
Yeah. And you know, like kind of longing for the freedom you had before, but also being torn emotionally because you love this person, you know, who's part of you. And, but yeah, it's friggin' hard. Like, and it's hard to balance everything else you're doing, like, or I'm doing with art, or trying to accomplish. But I think I'm managing pretty good.
Yeah.
I have a supportive family, and, you know, Autumn, my daughter, is getting older, so it's easier.
It's hard too, because a lot of times, you know, artistic stuff, you tend to need a certain amount of at least mental solitude to be able to figure it out. And that's something that toddlers are not real known for, giving you that space.
Yeah, definitely. It's tricky. I think my insomnia helps with that. I'll stay up late just to be alone, you know? And mostly, like, I used to work on photography, you know, till like 3 a.m. But I find it easier now to work on photography, at least editing in the morning. But music, like, late at night. Like, I'll come in here and just kind of, like, be alone and just play guitar. And I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I'll be lying in bed trying to sleep, but then I'll get this feeling that oh, I should go play guitar. Like, I feel like something might come out. So then even if I'm like kind of tired, I'll be like, I'm going to get up. And that will sometimes turn into 3 or 4 in the morning. And then sometimes it doesn't work. So, but I think it's just like sticking with it, like kind of putting the work in, you get rewarded, I guess. And just accepting failure is also important.
Yeah.
Not expecting anything, I guess. Because, a lot of the time, especially with music, I'll write like half a song and then not finish it. Like, I don't know, I must have like, not to sound crazy, but maybe like 100 half songs I've never finished over the years. And I just had to accept that. Like, I could be attached or love the half of the song I wrote, but like realizing, it's not going to work. Like, just forget it, move on.
Yeah.
And with photography, I think because I'm constantly taking pictures of my life, like my mom did for me. And then, I'll just stumble into things like having a camera around me, especially with my emotional states. One day, really, lately I've been very anxious. Like for the past like year, it's just like, I'll get panic attacks and anxiety, and that's really trying to nail down the treatment for that with like my psychiatrist and stuff. But it's tricky. And then, it's trying to, and lately I've been trying to really take care of myself, and maybe instead of being obsessive about creating, sometimes I think that I need to take a break and a step back. Yeah. Like, especially with this project I'm editing right now. I sent Toni all the pictures. I sent him my first edit, and then, sent him all the pictures, and then he kind of sent back an edit. And then we were talking about it a little bit, and it's interesting and helpful to see like what he sees in it and just discuss it. But I was telling him, and he suggested to just take a little break from it. It will drive you crazy. Yeah. So knowing that, I kind of, okay, I'm going to take a break. Yeah. and get myself together, and then come back to it when I'm stronger. Yeah.
It's pretty necessary. But it's hard to, I think a lot of people feel a certain pressure to perform, but like particularly artists, where it's like, it's kind of all you, and there's so much, you look around and you see what everybody else is doing, and you kind of feel like you want to keep up, or I don't know. That's how it is for me anyway, but you need those breaks because you can't be going at 100 all the time.
Yeah. And then I always have this like fear of, stopping, then I'll never start again. Like, I'll lose everything, and I just won't be able to get back into it, or like kind of lose the rhythm. But I don't think that's true. I mean, I've had breaks before in my life, and it just, it always comes back around. It's just trying to chill out is hard. Yeah. Yeah.
So, I thought it was really interesting when I found out that you are in a band also, aside from just doing the photography stuff. But, how did you get involved with that? Has music always been a thing for you, or?
Well, ever since I was little, I mean, I always had a piano in my house, and I had lessons, but again, like my parents realized I didn't have the attention span for like conservative piano lessons. So they put me in like basic ones, and then I would come up with things on my own, or like play by ear. I'm not saying I'm like a great pianist or anything, like not at all, but I always kind of came up with melodies and stuff. And then I think when I was 15, I got an acoustic guitar. I mean, I had one before that when I was younger, but I just messed around on it. And then when I was 15, I started to just kind of like write songs, but they were all really bad.
Some of us never get past that point.
Yeah. And I didn't really, take it seriously. It's all for fun. but then I was inspired by certain bands. And yeah, and then anyway, when I moved here, I had this project called Hey Sister with my friend Arjun, who's from Ottawa, but lives here, but in San Francisco. So we had kind of like a folky kind of experimental thing. He would play the accordion. And then anyway, that we kind of stopped that. And then I kind of wanted to start, I got an electric guitar from my uncle, my first electric, and I wanted to play it. And then I wanted to play in a band. Like, it was just kind of this natural evolution. So a mutual friend introduced me to Clara, who's our drummer. And then we started like playing together. I had a handful of songs that I already wrote, just the guitar and vocals and stuff like that. I don't come up with the drums or the bass. I leave that to Brian plays bass, Clara plays drums, and then Josh plays second guitar. So I really enjoy the collaboration, and they're all very talented musicians, which is inspiring. And I feel like it always kind of pushes me to stick with it, or just like not try too hard, but just keep working at it, I guess. But I don't think I'm like a great guitarist at all or anything. I just do it. I enjoy it, and I feel like it helps me. Like photography, it helps me get through times in my life.
Yeah.
And, you know, the songs, some of them are very personal, and then other ones are written from different perspectives. And yeah, so it's really fun. I love it. And being able to play shows and put out albums. And we've only done 2 tours, just short ones, because just our lives are pretty busy, and, you know, I have a kid and stuff like that, but I would like to do more touring. But also dealing with mental illness and touring is extra hard. Yeah.
It's such a different way of working and expressing than visual arts, and especially photography. And the thing that you said about collaborating is because photography, especially for more personal oriented stuff, it's really just you. Yeah. And you get to make all the decisions, but also you have to make all the decisions. So I don't know. There's something about that that's, I don't know, like being part of a band where you have to all kind of be coming together on something.
Be open to other people's thoughts and feelings. Yeah. I think it has a lot to do with also just having bandmates that you kind of like their style of playing. Like, you know, I can, like, it would be different if, you know, then I'm not like, I wouldn't be shy to be like, oh, I don't, you know, maybe something else here, but I never really have to do that because they're all good at what they do. And I think that really makes the songs more interesting.
Yeah.
I have like a solo project called And Gone, where like I'll post like, they're all really slow kind of stuff I record at like 3 a.m. And actually in 2012, I made like 20 songs in like 2 months and like made videos for each one where I'm kind of in them. So that was fun, but some of those turned into Burnt Palms songs. So it's awesome to see they go from being this thing to this other more exciting, collaborative, interesting song. So yeah, it's fun.
So for the second segment, I always ask the guest to bring a topic of their own, and it can be whatever you want.
Yeah.
So what would you like to talk about?
Well, I was thinking change would be a good subject. Because I've been thinking a lot about change lately because we applied for new visas and we're not sure what's going to happen with those. So again, just kind of like preparing myself that I might be facing like a huge change in lifestyle and everything I do, like having to let go of my band, you know, which it's going to be really hard. But I also know with change that it really inspires it inspires me creatively. Mm-hmm. So no matter what I'm dealing with, I know I'll have like photography to help me adjust. Mm-hmm. And I think like change is important too.
Yeah.
You know, like if you just live the same exact way every day, I feel like it'd be boring.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm also just used to ups and downs, like, and extremes in that sometimes. Mm-hmm. And it's addictive to, you know, the highs of, I think everyone, when they get happy and feeling like inspired, you know, they love it. But when you're bipolar and you're a little high, like feels like 100 times more intense. Mm-hmm. And so many ideas. You have so many ideas, and you get so much done when you're kind of like high. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of addictive.
Yeah.
But yeah, letting go of that too, and just trying to take better care of myself, and be easier on myself.
Yeah.
Less negative talking.
Yeah.
Self-talk.
It's hard to let go of.
Yeah, for sure.
It gets real comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
I do that all the time.
Yeah, it's not good, I don't think. Or maybe it's good, I don't know. Like, I don't know, some of my work maybe has come from a place of negative self-talk. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to change, to be a little more balanced, and instead of like, you know, manically going from one thing to the other. Oh, today I want to write a book, or I'm going to start this other project, or, you know, I'm shooting all these pictures and I'm going to go, like, that is like, I need to stop that, basically. Mm-hmm. I need to change. I need to just focus. And recently I actually experienced that. I felt really proud of myself because I had this idea that I wanted to play drums in this other band. I'm not even a drummer, but then as I was like doing it, I'm like, okay, yeah, drums are really fun, but it's distracting me from what I really care about. Like, I could be spending this time working on my photography or writing more songs that, you know, for Burnt Palms. So it's kind of like switching gears and just ignoring the weird, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I just feel better, just kind of focusing on what I already do. Mm-hmm. And, otherwise, oh man, there's just so many possibilities in life. Like, but what I know is, like, I'm most satisfied when I'm shooting and working on photography and also music. Like, they both, you know, writing songs and taking pictures, they both inspire each other. Mm-hmm. And then it's nice to have, like, two arts to focus on, because, like, if I'm not feeling inspired photographically or musically, then there's always the other one to go to. Mm-hmm. But there always has to be something.
Yeah.
I can't just be like a mom every day and just, like, you know, focusing only on being a mom like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I'm not saying that's bad. You know, some people are happy with that lifestyle. But for me, I need to be doing a lot of stuff for myself and expressing myself.
Yeah.
And I don't think my daughter suffers from that. I actually think she's really open and interesting and artistic already, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah. It's funny how kids surprise you. I'm constantly surprised by my kids.
Yeah.
And I'm always doing stuff. I'm always busy. Like, I have a full-time job, plus I have the photography, and then I write, and now I have the podcast.
Yeah, that's a lot.
The thing you were saying about, you know, things being a distraction, I wish I had the self-control because I'll go off on a tangent, and then I'll realize that 5 years have gone by.
Mm-hmm. I know, it's tough. Like, and up until recently, I just couldn't settle down, and still it's hard, but I'm so proud of myself that I just realized playing the drums isn't I don't need to do this. Like, it's whatever. Like, I have so many other things to focus on. Like, you know, I don't show my photography. That's one thing I really want to do. So why don't I use that time to focus on this thing that would satisfy me for sure?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think actually having a kid it's crazy. Like, you have no time, but at the same time, it makes you manage the time you have a little. Like,
it definitely
for me,
makes you aware that there is time going by.
Yeah.
Because you just have this little reminder constantly growing up and,
yeah,
you're bigger than you used to be.
I know. It's like, I shot this like 3 years ago and I still haven't done anything with it.
Yeah.
But that's cool. I think it kind of needs time to sit there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just finished up a project that I'd been working on for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And
that's a lot.
Most of the images are actually from 5 years ago, but I mean,
cool.
There's some new ones too, but
yeah,
it sneaks up on you. Time gets away from you.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's
funny too, because like you're talking about change, like that whole thing that I just finished up is all about, I don't know. I'm just like naturally a person that really things being different. I used to think it was because we moved a lot when I was a kid, but then I was realizing becoming a parent made me realize I think maybe it's just something that's naturally inborn because we've lived in the same house for my son's whole life. Yeah. And he's 8 now, and he's like really has a huge problem with anything being different.
Oh, okay.
And like my daughters, they never think about that kind of thing. They don't care. But like him, and he's had a ton of stability in his life.
Okay.
So I think it just must be something the two of us are just naturally natural tendency, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, for me, like in my childhood, I grew up in the same house, like until I moved away, basically, or moved out on my own. And the stability, I definitely needed it because I was dealing with so much instability mentally. You know, it started young. So, always having that foundation of like amazing parents and like a nice home to go to. And like, you know, I don't know if probably most people don't know, but I actually like lived in a hospital for almost a year, in 8th grade because I was really sick, mentally. And that changed my life too. It was a huge change. I got to go home on some weekends and stuff, but, yeah, it's just every experience I've had in my life that has been, intense it's always brought me to a better place.
Can
and
be
I
rough
think
in the middle though.
Yeah, in the midst of it all, like you feel like there's no light, like, you know, but I'm honestly, I am so, grateful for every experience I've had. Like, I wouldn't want it for my daughter. Like, I wouldn't want it for anyone.
Right.
Especially like parents. My parents, they went through so much. They're like amazing people. But you know, I just think it's like making the most out of what you're born with. And, I try to do that with everything, I guess, and trying to accept who I am. And it's constant. We're always changing. Yeah. But being okay in the moment. Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be tough to get there. That thing that you just said about not wanting it for your daughter, like that's something I think about all the time. Cause like, I think a lot about why I am the way that I am. And a lot of it does come out of struggles that I've had. And especially when I was a kid, we had a lot of problems when I was younger. Like, you know, we didn't have a lot when I was a kid. Yeah. And also I don't know, like I had a lot of personal troubles, like getting bullied or whatever. And a lot of that, I think, brought me that there are good things that came out of it. Yeah. And I think about how, like, my kids, as far as I can tell, I know that some of the problems that I had when I was a kid, they definitely won't have because, like, I'm doing a lot better at this point in my life than my mom was when I was that age. Yeah. And I think, like, it's weird because I definitely would never want like, I don't want my kids to have to suffer through the stuff that I suffered through. But I also know that's why I am the way that I am. But then and like,
well, and you want them to be strong, right?
Yeah.
And I think like hard situations make you stronger and a more compassionate person.
Yeah.
In my experience of like my friends who have dealt with depression or mood problems or like hard childhoods, they're all so accepting and understanding and supportive of all the weird things about me, or like so yeah, I think, I don't know, I think who knows what our future holds as humans and just personally, but I want to just do my best and focus on my art, and that's pretty much yeah.
Change is, I don't know, often scary, but
yeah, totally, it's freaking super scary. But it always leads you to somewhere else, and my experience, usually it's kind of meant to be, so things work out.
Well, that actually seems like a really great place to sort of wind things down, but there's one thing that I've been asking people lately. I didn't do this in the beginning of the show, but is if there's some piece of art or literature or music that you've experienced recently that's meant something to you.
Oh, man.
It's a surprisingly hard question, I find.
It is very hard for me, especially because my brain, like anything I read, I never remember it. Like, it's like I'm always kind of floating outside my life. Let me think here. Oh, man, there's got to be. Well, actually, there's this musician, Kurt Weill. He's pretty, like, well-known. And I find his music to be, like, super touching, like amazing, like his melody, his lyrics, just something about it really inspires me. And like, even if I'm working on photos, sometimes I'll put on his album, and it kind of like inserts me into a different mind frame. So I'm always amazed by music that can do that. Like, it's not intrusive, but it's really powerful. Yeah, Kurt Weill. He's amazing.
Cool.
Yeah. There's so many other things, but I just, of course, can't remember.
Yeah.
It's horrible. I don't know if it's all the medication I take or what, but like I'll read something. I don't remember the name of the artist. I'm horrible with that. I need to really just, it's almost like I need to study. I need to spend time studying.
Yeah.
or something.
I don't know. I do that too. Like, as soon as I'm done reading a book, like I might have just spent a month reading a book, and then the next day I can't remember a single thing that happened in the whole book.
Yeah.
So
I actually just read Carrie Brownstein, her book "Hunger Makes Me a Modern Girl," which was also very inspiring because she's a musician and an actress. And she dealt with like crazy anxiety too on tour, and always getting sick on tour. So I was like, okay, maybe I can still do this. Like it's okay if I'm anxious.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was good too. But yeah, both those things. Yeah. Musically, and then photography. Just I unfortunately, like, I have a hard time paying a lot of attention. Like, I'm always really happy when people bring to my attention other photographers, or like your podcast is really cool because like I'll check out the people that you talk to, and that's awesome because otherwise I'm just in my own world. I live in my own fucking world like all the time. Never. I don't know. It's weird. Like it's floating along. Like I'll be present, but at the same time not present.
Yeah.
So, but that's just me.
Yeah. Well, I think we all have some aspect of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Well, this was really fun.
Well, great. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks very much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. I want to thank Christina for talking with me. It was a real pleasure. As I mentioned at the top of the show, you can buy the second edition of her book, Back to Me, from Straylight Press, and I've put a link to the Straylight Press website in the show notes. You should also be on the lookout for her book, Born, which should be coming out soon, from Straylight Press also, and I will be sure to tweet out a link to that when it's released. I've also put links into the show notes for Christina's excellent Instagram, her band Burnt Palms, so check those out. And that is our show. If you would like to get in touch with me about anything from today's show, you can email me at podcast@keepthechannelopen.com, or you can find me and the show on Twitter at ChannelOpenPod, or on Facebook at facebook.com/keepthechanneleopen. If you'd like to help out the show, you can leave a review on iTunes, and there is a link in the show notes for that. Another way that you can help out the show is that we recently started a Patreon campaign, which you can find at patreon.com/sakeriver. That's sake like the drink, S-A-K-E, and river like river. And, you know, every little bit helps. Even just a $1 contribution monthly goes a long way towards helping me pay the costs for this website and this podcast. You can also subscribe to the podcast via iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, or your favorite podcast app. Our theme music is by Poddington Bear. You can find more of his music available for licensing at soundofpicture.com. Next time, our guest will be Ginger Schulich Porcella, the executive director of the San Diego Art Institute, so be sure to come back for that one. And until then, remember, keep the channel open.